faster, Blacker.
That performance by Abigail Breslin is probably the greatest thing about this movie, honestly. You have Mel Gibson as an Episcopalian priest named Graham Hess, who discovers a series of crop circles in his cornfield, and that the phenomenon is a result of extraterrestrial life. Now, I know this movie has a lot of fans to it. Everyone thinks that the one movie that came after this, The Village, was the beginning of M. Night Shyamalan's downfall. I think this is the one that really began his downfall. This is not a very good movie. I don't think it's a very good movie. There's a lot of good people involved in it. Mel Gibson, Joaquin Phoenix, Rory Culkin, Abigail Breslin, one of her early film roles. I think her earliest film role, honestly. But the movie really does not work. I mean, it's boring. The characters are not that interesting at all. They all speak in a monotone pitch. ASMR has more emotion to it than the people that act in this movie. The aliens are not that good looking either. I mean, they're just typical generic alien designs. Like, they're not really anything too special or anything too exciting. They're just bland alien designs. There are too many scenes in the movie where nothing is going on. There's too many moments in the movie where characters are acting so bizarre and so weird, like the army guy that Joaquin Phoenix goes to talk to. Like, his eyes never look like he's always looking right at you, and his mouth never closes. It's just like he's speaking in that monotone voice too. It's just like what is your deal, man? Like, the show's the beginning of the downfalls of many of Shyamalan's movies. After this is at this point, from this point onward, because all the characters are very monotone. There's trying to be more. What do I want to say here? I'm trying to say that the writing gets extremely pretentious at times. M. Night Shyamalan really is getting to that point where his ego is starting to take over big time. And like I said, there's not that much that happens that makes this movie interesting. This is a movie that's over 2 hours long. Not even that, almost 2 hours long. But still, it feels like you're sitting there for a long period of time where nothing is going on. You're just kind of like, what did people see in this movie that I didn't see? I mean, I guess the marketing did a good job of selling the film. I guess the atmospheric elements of it kind of work in some way, shape, or form. But the execution and how it's delivered, it ruins the ebb and flow of the movie. There's nothing about this movie that is exciting. There's nothing about this movie that's engaging, or you get involved in the mysterious aspects. These aliens can't get through doors. And even to the point where Mel Gibson has to say, they seem to have trouble getting through pantry doors. Like, they can't get through pantry doors. They can't last on our planet because the entire Earth's covered in water, which... Like, why were we afraid of these guys again? Like, nothing about this makes any sense whatsoever. And it just ruins the ebb and flow of what the movie was trying to sell you on. This was the movie that made me realize that M. Night Shyamalan has a little bit of an ego to him, because after this, it just went downhill from there before it eventually slowly but surely rise back up again about 10 years after this. But this was the point where that goodwill he had built up with The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable had just kind of started to go away. At least to me it did. I know a lot of people love this movie, and I personally think you're wrong, but that's my personal opinion. But that's Signs for you. That is M. Night Shyamalan's Signs. So let's go ahead and move on to a movie that, you know what? As much as I hate Signs, it's Citizen Kane compared to our next movie. Let's talk about the infamy that is Dana Carvey in The Master of Disguise.
August 2nd.
Master of Disguise.
Revolution Studios invites you to think action, think adventure.
What's this after me?
Think turtle.
Am I not turtly enough for this turtle club? Turtle.
Dana Carvey.
Folks around here call me W. Hoya!
The Master of Disguise. Rated PG. Theaters everywhere.
So something we should pretty much clear up here right from the get-go. There was a rumor that for the longest time there was the turtle scene, which was all over the marketing. They thought that this was going to be the big laugh-out-loud moment of the movie, but there was a belief that they actually filmed that on the day of the September 11th attacks. It happened right as the news came out that the World Trade Centers were attacked, and they were filming that day. They had a moment of silence, and Carvey was still in the turtle outfit during the moment of silence. And there was a belief that happened on September 11th, but that turned out to be a rumor. And when you really think about it, the timing was off on that because, first of all, September 11th, on September 11th, the Twin Towers were attacked around like between 8 and 9 o'clock in the morning, which means that on the West Coast in Hollywood, it would have been probably 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. So unless they decided to shoot early that morning for some odd reason, like they wanted to they thought that they needed to film this scene early in the morning, yeah, you could pretty much figure out that that was not meant to be true. And the director even confirmed that that did happen. However, it took place the weeks after the attack. So it basically happened it's after the September 11th attacks, weeks after the attack. So it didn't happen on the day that it happened, which kind of takes away some of the jokes I was going to put in here because, yeah, when you see the Turtle Club all over the marketing for this, and you hear the story about the fact that this was originally supposed to shot on September 11th, like, the comedy should be there for you to really get some laughs out of it, but just like the rest of this movie, comedy is not a factor in here because, my God, this is one of the worst comedies of the year. I would say the worst comedy of the year, but wait until we get to 2 weeks later. Wait until we get to the movie that Eddie Murphy decided to do before we get to that, because that one is much, much worse. But this ain't any better. I mean, I feel so bad for Dana Carvey. I mean, the guy can be extremely funny when you give him the right stuff to do, but in this, it really does feel like Adam Sandler forced him to do this movie. The plot, I think you can pretty much get from the gist of it here. It's about a man who is trained to become a master of disguise by his grandfather when a master criminal kidnaps his father. And, I mean, this movie is about as despicable in its we don't give a fuckness as you could get. I mean, you can watch this movie and see that nobody cared about what they were doing. And they were all just cashing in a paycheck. It's just a lackluster film on so many levels. It wasn't funny. It wasn't clever. It's just a mess of a movie, a sloppy mess of a film that, you know, you understand why Dana Carvey hasn't done another leading role since this movie. I mean, this was supposed to be his big return after so many years of not making a leading role in the film. I think the last film he actually did before this was Clean Slate, which was a far better movie by comparison. But this was a rough sit through. I mean, you want to know what the crazy thing about this is? This thing actually does have one good running gag, and it involves, of all things, a fart joke. A fart joke and Data from Star Trek, Brent Spiner, who plays the villain. And it's the one thing in the movie that I can honestly say is funny, because it just comes out of nowhere. You don't really expect anything from it, and, like, all of a sudden, there it is. Like, it surprisingly is funny. Like, not haha funny, but it's still, like, the one moment in the movie where it's just like, oh my God, I actually got a laugh out of that. Like, it's like that was the one thing they really cared about. But the movie is lazy too. Like, the movie, I mean, it's just under 80 minutes. It says 80 minutes long, but the real movie is only an hour long, and there's 15 minutes worth of stuff in the credits. Pointless bloopers, scenes that don't make a whole lot of sense. The movie is over by the 65-minute mark, and there's no reason why you should be sitting in the theater at this point. Like, it baffles me how bad this movie is. Like, it really, really baffles me how this movie ended up being as bad as it was. And surprisingly, it's not the worst comedy of the year. Like I said, we've still got 2 weeks' time before we get to the true worst comedy of the year. One of the worst movies I've ever seen. But we'll save that for another couple weeks. But for this, avoid this movie like the plague. Even if I told you about that one gag that was funny, it's just kind of like, it's not worth it to see this film. Not by a long shot, by any means necessary. Just a massive failure on so many levels. So, yeah, avoid Master of Disguise. How about a comedy that actually is funny? How about some Martin Lawrence? Martin Lawrence Live, Run Tell Dat. So Martin Lawrence Live, Run Tell Dat is the second Martin Lawrence stand-up comedy movie after You So Crazy came out in 1994, and you know, kind of like with what Richard Pryor did with his first comedy movie back in the 1980s. This was a movie that was kind of like, it came after Lawrence had all these different controversies going on in his life. Like, he lashed out in a violent rage and was then hospitalized while he was filming A Thin Line Between Love and Hate. He went on a mental bender, brandishing a pistol in the middle of an intersection in Los Angeles. You know, when he's screaming at the top of your lungs, "They're trying to kill me! They're trying to kill me!" And he actually ended up with 2 years probation. He was accused of sexual assault from his co-star Tisha Campbell Martin, and you know, this was right at the end of his show coming to an end on Fox. He was then arrested for punching a man in a Hollywood nightclub. He actually collapsed from heat exhaustion while he was making Big Mama's House. So while he was making these movies, there was all these things going on in his life that are addressed in this film. And also, he talks about taking the lengthy hiatus, tackling subject matter such as marriage, his divorce, childbirth, old age, and a lot of the times the jokes in here can be funny, but in terms of stand-up comedy movies, it's probably not the best overall stand-up comedy film that I've seen. Like, I have a special softness for the Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy movies, and you know, Martin Lawrence, I think, does good enough of a job here to keep you invested in what's going on, and the delivery can be very funny, but I mean, the film itself is just kind of okay. There's nothing about it that's bad per se. Nothing really that bad about the material and all. It's just kind of like, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like you're getting what you really expect to get from a movie like this. I feel like you kind of want to expect more from it. Like when Richard Pryor made that movie after he got caught after he was set on fire, like he was on his A game with the jokes in that movie, and like that's kind of the high bar for something like this. You kind of expect to see Martin Lawrence in that same status too, but he doesn't really go that far. Like the stuff he says and the jokes he talks about are funny, but I don't know. It just didn't feel like all of his A game was really in this particular film, and it really did kind of let me down the first time I saw the movie. But as time went on, I did slowly but surely start to grow an attachment to it again, to a point where I was just kind of like, you know what, for what it is, it's fine. It definitely could have been a whole lot better, but I really like what I saw from here, and it's Martin Lawrence doing stand-up comedy. I mean, it's really good stuff. I like it. So. Recommendation slightly for Martin Lawrence live until that. So let's go ahead and move on to the last movie, and that is Steven Soderbergh with the first of 2 movies he made in 2002, Full Frontal.
What do a producer, a dominatrix, a reporter, and a movie star have in common? They're all doing something behind closed doors in Hollywood. From Oscar-winning director Steven Soderbergh comes the unauthorized companion piece to Sex, Lies, and Videotape.
When was the last time you made $500 for 30 seconds?
You're cruel. Can a brother get some love?
I like you, David.
Are you?
Put that chair against the door.
I am on to you.
I read that chocolate can kill dogs. Tell me what to do. Induce what?
You can't moan or grunt. Oh, no, too loud.
Full Frontal.
Yeah, even Steven Soderbergh can get a little too pretentious for his own good, and this film, I think, was definitely one of those examples. It says it's a sort of sequel to Sex, Lies, and Videotape, but not so much. The storyline of this movie is the fact that this is a day in the life of a group of men and women in Hollywood in the hours leading up to a friend's birthday party. In fact, the original title for this particular film was called How to Survive a Hotel Room Fire, but because of September 11th, they actually had to change the title to The Art of Negotiating a Turn, and that wasn't even the end of that, because Harvey Weinstein actually called the producers and said he didn't like the new movie title, so Soderbergh then changed it over to Full Frontal, and thus we have the movie that we have here. A strong cast in this movie: David Duchovny, Enrico Colante, Nikki Katt, Catherine Keener, Mary McCormick, David Hyde Pierce, Julia Roberts, Blair Underwood, Jeff Garland, Terrence Stamp, Brad Pitt guest stars himself in here in this. I mean, like I said, Steven Soderbergh makes a lot of good movies, but this is the one where I really do feel like he was being a little too pretentious for his own good. It's a movie that I think that there was a good idea involved in here, but just not the right execution overall. I feel like it's a movie that is way too so far its own butt that it really doesn't know what its existence is supposed to be about. Like, what's supposed to be the big takeaway from this movie? Like, why am I here? What is the reason why I should be back in here to enjoy this film? And it's just like, there's nothing really about it that makes it stand out here. And this kind of ended the streak of really good movies from Soderbergh, because he went on a little bit of a lull starting with this. His next film was not that great. He did a couple of movies that weren't as strong, like Eros, Ocean's 12, but then he kind of slowly but surely started coming back on track again in the middle part of the decade. And but this was one of the first movies where it was just like, yeah, this really wasn't your best stuff, and it really does show. It's unfortunate because there is a lot about here that might work, specifically with the cast alone, but the film doesn't know really what it wants to do with itself. Like, what does it really want to be here? ear. And it's just like, you just never really get the full impact of what he's trying to do here. Like, it doesn't really know how to sell itself. It just wasn't an enjoyable film. Like, it kind of drags too. I think it's a really long movie, but it's only an hour and a half. It's only a little bit over an hour and a half long, but it's one of those movies that really, the pacing really hurts it in the long run. And like I said, it feels so pretentious that you really feel like it's saying that it's better than you without even letting you know about it. But it's just like, yeah, I got nothing else to say about this one. This is almost a dull movie. A really lackluster film with so many elements that maybe could have worked, but it just didn't in the end. So, a hard pass on Full Frontal.
You're CLIPLESS. Unless you please go on a mission. How long have you been a secret agent? 2 days? Oh no, it's not. Wow, the face of the world. From 22 minutes to evacuate 1 million people. It comes down to one man. Brave, different man. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Go to the I run for this!
When Sony basically decided that they wanted to be the cool James Bond, because, you know, James Bond was just too old and not hip enough to the kids, because we need this one here to be for the MTV generation, even though the MTV generation pretty much grew up at this point. But yeah, this is a movie where you have Vin Diesel as Xander Cage, a thrill-seeking extreme sports enthusiast, stuntman, and rebellious athlete turned reluctant spy for the NSA. Cage is sent on a dangerous mission to infiltrate a group of potential Russian terrorists in Central Europe. You also have Samuel L. Jackson here, Asia Argento, and yeah, kind of like what I said before. This was a movie that was clearly trying to, you know, this was clearly trying to be made for a new, younger generation who were growing tired of the James Bond movies, which, I don't know, the James Bond movies were still doing pretty good up until, you know, Die Another Day came out a couple months later, but we'll eventually get to that one. But, like, you could tell right from the get-go, like, as soon as the movie begins, it starts off with a pale James Bond impersonation. Like, the movie's clearly trying to tell you, this ain't a James Bond movie, this is for the extreme, this is an extreme movie, you know, like, and it's all over this film. And, you know, the Fast and Furious had that extreme edge to it, but you know what? There was at least something to it. There was at least a story going on with that film overall that you kept getting invested in. Even though it was pretty much Point Break, but with more extremeness to it. Like, this is pathetic what they do here with this movie. I mean, there is not a lot of fun in this movie, and a lot of this stuff here is really, really dated. Vin Diesel, he's doing the best he can with the stuff given to him. I mean, I guess he's fine in the movie, but then again, this is just a movie that's clearly trying to market itself as this new wannabe James Bond franchise, but with an attitude for the people that watched MTV. But like I said, even MTV was getting to that point where the thing that made them the cool, edgy channel of the 1990s was slowly but surely starting to go away, starting within 2002. So, yeah, they were kind of already losing on that mark there. And it just goes to show you that Rob Cohen, the director of this, who has been directing for a long time, and even was directing for a long time, ever since XXX came out, he's trying so hard to stay young and relevant, because this is not the last time he would try to make a hip, young movie for an audience that's clearly more than maybe 3 times his age, because he would follow this up with Stealth. He would direct the worst Mummy movie. He would direct the worst Alex Cross movie. He would direct a terrible erotic thriller with Jennifer Lopez in it. He would direct a terrible Twister knockoff. I mean, his career just fell off big time after Fast and Furious. And this movie, even though this film did make a ton of money at the box office, it was a big hit. And, you know, they could have made sequels, but then Vin Diesel decided, I'm too good for sequels, so I want to go do something else. And they followed it up with a XXX movie that was, unfortunately, not as good as it somehow got even worse, even though it has a better actor involved in it with Ice Cube. Yeah, this was, like I said, this film was a success at the box office. People were sucked in, and really, like, I didn't really see the appeal of it, honestly. I tried to when I first watched it for the first time, I was just kind of like, this is fine, I guess, but you know what? I'd rather just watch a James Bond movie, because I know what I'm getting from a James Bond movie. Even the corny stuff in a James Bond movie can still be entertaining. Even, I would rather watch Die Another Day than XXX again. And Die Another Day is probably one of the worst James Bond movies ever. Like I said, we'll get to that one in a couple months from now. But, But yeah, Triple X it just didn't work for me. And you know, Vin Diesel kind of killed the franchise that he could have had here by saying, no, I'm not going to do this, and then saying, okay, I'll come back to it, because clearly I can't do anything else without putting my name on my is on one of the franchises I'm involved in again. And even that time it didn't work with the third film in the series. So that is Triple X. So let's go ahead and move on to a movie that knows it's stupid, but somehow it works. It's the sequel to last year's Spy Kids, and that is Spy Kids 2, The Island of Lost Dreams.
We take a ride on the wild side. Spy Kids 2.
Maybe it's friendly. Maybe it's not.
Now playing.
So you didn't need a Triple X to become the next James Bond franchise. You already had the next James Bond style franchise, and it was made for kids, and it was Spy Kids 2, The Island of Lost Dreams. I mean, the first Spy Kids movie was a surprisingly effective and fun movie for kids, and that there's also stuff in there that the adults can actually really like in it as well. And the second film definitely delivers a lot more of that, and then some. So in this one, you've got the return of Carmen and Junie Cortez, who have now joined the family spy business as Level 2 OSS agents. Their new mission is to save the world from a mad scientist living on a volcanic island populated by an imaginative menagerie of creatures. And on this bizarre island, none of the Cortez's gadgets work, and they must rely on their wits and each other to survive and save the day. And just a phenomenal cast once again. A lot of the same actors from the first movie are back in this one, you know. Antonio Banderas, Carla Gugino, of course Alexa Vega and Daryl Sabara, Mike Judge from the last movie's back. They bring in Ricardo Montalban and Holland Taylor to play the grandparents. They have Christopher McDonald as the President of the United States in here. Danny Trejo as Machete, which I always find that kind of amusing, that before he became Machete in the Grindhouse movies, Danny Trejo was the Machete in these movies. But you also have Alan Cumming, Tony Shalhoub. Just a good cast overall in this movie, and the film just works because it knows exactly what it's doing. And it's paying a nice homage to Ray Harryhausen movies, too. Like, the creatures in here clearly are stuff that could have easily been taken from the inspiration could have been taken from the Ray Harryhausen movies, like Clash of the Titans, and, you know, just those famous movies where you see the actor facing off against the skeletons and all that. And it's really fun to see that in a modern movie like this. It's very well done. You do like these characters a lot, and you do want to see them go on these adventures together and see how crazy the adventures are going to get here. And like I said, they're doing more creative stuff in this movie than they were doing in Triple X. Like, this movie and this series was clearly trying to be a new form of a James Bond franchise more than what Triple X was marketing itself as. I mean, you had to choose between Triple X and also Spy Kids. Like, Spy Kids is going to win easily, at least with the first two movies. After that, it kind of goes downhill from there, but we'll learn more about that when we get to the third Spy Kids movie coming up in the following summer. But Spy Kids 2 and The Island of Lost Dreams is a lot of fun. I do recommend it. I think it is a very fun film. If you like the first one, you're definitely going to love the second one for sure. So with that said, let's move on to our next movie, and that's Clint Eastwood's latest film, Bloodwork.
When the only connection to the killer is you. You and me, like Cain and Abel, Kennedy and Oswald, Clint Eastwood. Bloodwork, rated R, starts 40 August 9.
Definitely not one of Clint Eastwood's stronger movies. In this film, you have him as a retired FBI profiler who's still recovering from a heart transplant. He returns to service when his own blood analysis offers clues to the identity of a serial killer. This is based off of a book by Michael Connolly, and it's got talent on board here. Clint Eastwood directed it, of course. Brian Helgeland is also the screenwriter. He wrote LA Confidential. But this was kind of the film, I think, that came before the Clint Eastwood turnaround, because following this, he would do Mystic River and then followed up with $1 Million Baby, both of which were Oscar winners. But this movie in particular, it's just kind of a generic movie. I mean, Clint Eastwood can usually make this movie work on his own merits, but the film itself, it's just a really lackluster mystery that doesn't really have the things that you need to have in here to keep you invested in what's going on here and trying to figure out which direction it's going to go here. And I think that's the biggest flaw with the movie, is that once you figure it out, you can kind of figure out what the big twist is going to be right from the get-go. And once you figure that out, it's just kind of like, why am I watching this movie? Because it's just going to pad it out, until it gets to that point where it's just like, okay, here's what really happened. And it's just like, yeah, that really did not work as well as I think you wanted it to work. And Yeah, it's just not one of Clint Eastwood's better movies. It's not a bad movie per se, but it certainly is. There certainly are a lot better Eastwood films you could be watching besides this one. No question about it. So, not much more to say about that one. So that's Bloodwork. So let's go ahead and move on to our last movie, and that is Jennifer Aniston in The Good Girl.
Jennifer Aniston scores a bullseye.
What you reading? Catcher in the Rye. I'm named after it. What's your name? Catcher?
In one of the best films of the year.
You ever been to a Bible study? Or about loving Jesus?
Yeah, I kind of like my nights to myself.
Well, maybe you'll have night after night of eternal hellfire all to yourself.
No, Chrissy.
Don't miss this comedy of winning delicacy and heart.
I like having a
So in The Good Girl, Jennifer Aniston plays a young married woman whose mundane life takes a turn for the worse when she strikes up a passionate and illicit affair with an oddball discount store stock boy who thinks he's Holden Caulfield, played by Jake Gyllenhaal. This is directed by Miguel Artera, who would later go on to direct Youth and Revolt, Cedar Rapids, and written by Mike White, who of course is now well known for writing stuff like The White Lotus, as well as the most recent Illumination animated film Migration. And in addition to Jennifer Aniston and Jake Gyllenhaal, you have John C. Reilly, Tim Blake Nelson, Zooey Deschanel, and Mike White in here as well as a star. But the film is really, really good, and it works mostly because of Jennifer Aniston going against type. I mean, yeah, we've seen her in comedies before, but this was a performance that was very much against her playing the character of Rachel on Friends, and like the romantic comedy lead that they were trying to set her up to be. But it's very different from what we're used to seeing her in, and it works very well for her. I think she does a very good job of handling this material very well here. You do buy into the relationship she has in the movie, and all the performances here are great. Jake Gyllenhaal's very good, John C. Reilly's really good, Tim Blake Nelson is great. I mean, there's a lot of great elements to the film overall. I think it's a very well-made film. Definitely shows you a lot of different things about, the actors involved in here, showing their abilities and what they could do. And it's just a good movie, man. It's both very funny, it can be very serious. It knows exactly the balance that it wants to take into consideration, and it just works really well. I kind of wish Jennifer Aniston went back and did a little bit more of these type of movies, which, I mean, she might still be doing now. I don't know. I haven't really seen much of her doing a lot of these bigger movies nowadays, but compared to what she did once she left Friends, once Friends ended, not left Friends, but you get the idea of what I'm trying to say here. But yeah, this is a really good movie. The Good Girl. Definitely check it out if you haven't seen it.
They're the most dangerous waves on the planet. Out here, you don't just get crushed. You die. This summer, if you want to be the best.
These waves are for the big boys. You think you can surf it for real?
You know it.
You have to take the biggest risk.
Take a single wave like that. You put yourself on the map.
It's gonna be alright?
You're just giving us a number.
It's not worth getting hurt over. What are you trying to prove? No one thinks a girl can do this, and I'm gonna prove them wrong. Hey, be careful.
Crush, rated PG-13. At theaters Friday, August 16th.
Almost said that this was a thriller, but no, this is more like a drama, and a surprisingly pretty good one. You have Kate Bosworth and Michelle Rodriguez, and nothing gets between Bosworth's Anne-Marie and also her board, living in a beach shack with 3 roommates, including her rebellious young sister. She's up before dawn every morning to conquer the waves and count the days until the Pipe Master Surf Competition. Having transplanted herself to Hawaii with no one's blessing but her own, Anne-Marie finds all she needs in the adrenaline-charged surf scene until pro quarterback Matt Tolman comes along. Like it or not, Anne-Marie starts losing her balance and finding it as she falls for Matt. And, of course, chaos and hilarity ensue, I guess. I don't know. But, yeah, the trailers for this, it's pretty much aimed at the Fast and Furious audience. But unlike Triple X from last week, this one's actually a pretty surprisingly good movie. It's a film that, of course, is filmed in Hawaii. And you have Kate Bosworth, Michelle Rodriguez, and Sano Lake, who plays Lena. They're very good in the movie together. They're 3 very good friends overall. I like the surfing scenes in particular. I think they're shot very well. This director is John Stockwell, who's done a couple of decent movies. He did Crazy Beautiful. I just said Crazy Beautiful was a decent film, but that was one which was kind of like It wasn't. That one wasn't really a good film overall. But his next movie, Into the Blue, is kind of a guilty pleasure movie. The more I think about it, it's a film it's bad for a number of different reasons, but bad in a fun kind of way too. But this movie in particular, I think overall, is very well done. You've got a lot of good young actors here working off each other very well here. They're really the flow that keeps the movie together, along with the surfing sequences, which I think are very cool to look at. Even if you're not the biggest surfing person in the world, seeing them on surfing with these shots with while they're doing it are very cool to see. And you do have to wonder how they're getting these shots down, because I think most of these shots were actually done while they were doing it, which was kind of unprecedented for the time. I mean, I don't know how much CG was actually used for those scenes, but they're really cool and very well done overall. The story has been there, done that before. I mean, it's something that's been done numerous times in various movies like this, but it's never getting to the point where it kind of ruins the ebb and flow of the movie right away. It actually works for what they're doing here. It's not the greatest overall, but it certainly could have been done a lot worse than what it's done in other movies like this. But you do get invested with the characters. You do like the surfing scenes in particular. There are a lot of things about the film that are very enjoyable. There is a lot to really appreciate about the effort that's being put into this movie, which, I think they did a very good job of handling that. It's a movie that doesn't really get the proper attention I think it deserves. I mean, it was a hit when it came out, but then it just kind of slipped away, honestly, and never really amounted to anything except for, the lazy generic Universal direct-to-DVD sequel. Because if you made a Universal film and it made somewhat of a profit, they're going to make a direct-to-DVD sequel that makes the first one look like Citizen Kane compared to what they do with the sequels. But yeah, I thought the movie was pretty good. I think it's a very underrated film. Definitely get to see one of Kate Bosworth's early film roles. It's definitely worth it. I'd say definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. It's a really good film, Blue Crush. So, yeah, that's probably the best overall film we have this weekend, because our next movie is anything but good. Let's talk about the infamy that is The Adventures of Pluto Nash.
On the move. Take off. Take aim. Oh. Take cover.
Let's get it right this time.
Uh-oh. On August 16th,
We're hoping that for our anniversary that maybe we could get a brand new bus.
get ready for Eddie.
Oh, yeah, look at that. Look at me.
The Adventures of Pluto Nash.
Why don't you take these Hillarys? We appreciate you helping us out.
Rated PG-13.
Hillary Clinton dollars. That will never get dated. Let that joke set the tone for the movie you're about to watch. Or maybe hear about, because you should not watch this movie. Let me tell you something. I've been going to movies at the movie theater for about 7 years at this point. The Adventures of Pluto Nash was probably the first movie I ever truly walked out of a movie theater saying that I absolutely hated on a number of different levels. I despise this movie on so many levels, and once you see the film, you probably will think the same thing. I mean, this is a rough movie, and let's just put it this way. Actually, before we do that, let's just run down the plot real quick. After his successful nightclub is blown to flaming bits, Pluto, played by Eddie Murphy, and his band travel across the moon looking for clues as to who is behind the arson. Along with Bruno, played by Randy Quaid, and Dina, played by Rosario Dawson, Pluto visits a seedy motel, his secret hideout, and the casino of the most powerful man on the moon, searching for the evildoer, only to find out the destruction of his club may have been his own fault. And like I said, this was really the first movie I ever saw in a theater where I honestly thought it was absolute garbage. I mean, I saw Scooby-Doo that same summer in a theater. This made Scooby-Doo look like Citizen Kane. I'm not even kidding. This is a bad movie. Eddie Murphy has made some really bad movies in his career, but even so, this is at the bottom of the barrel. I mean, Norbit is a bad movie, but at least it has some form of quality to it, because you have Rick Baker doing the same special effects he did with The Nutty Professor, and those were really great. Too bad the rest of the movie was complete garbage. I mean, that at least I could say is positive for Norbit, but this is just a mess. Let me put it this way. This movie has been sitting in development hell for 20 years before Warner Brothers finally decided to agree to 20 years. You would think that within 20 years, somebody would have looked at the script and go, maybe we should change this around to fit modern times, but nope. This movie is too lazy to even do that. They took a script clearly from the 1980s and tried to make it for 2002. There are jokes that are so dated, and just like I said before, jokes that will eventually become dated. They didn't even bother to change any of the script at all. It's like this is the first movie where this is the movie that's the first example of the studio putting in way too much money in what they thought they was going to be the next big hit franchise. I mean, they put $100 million to this movie. I mean, somebody at Warner Bros. Thought this was worthy of $100 million. I mean, you got to hope that the dude who greenlit either got fired or completely was burned at the stake in particular. But then again, now that I realize that Warner Brothers Warner Brothers has probably made bigger movies that have had this budget since then that have been much, much worse. But that's for another time. You know how much of that $100 million they made back? $7 million. $7 million. That's the total gross that this movie made, and that was worldwide. This thing didn't even cross $5 million domestically. This is the quintessential example of a financial flop. And I don't think any other parody could have ever painted the perfect picture of how the studio must have felt than the Robot Chicken bit. You know, where they talk about this the Monday after Pluto Nash came out, and everybody in the studio is just like completely on the cut, is finding ways to kill themselves because of how much of a disaster this movie is. Which, unfortunately, I can't show it here because good old YouTube and their copyright issues. So yeah, if you want to go look for it, I beg you to go look for it because it's more than worth it just to see how a perfect parody of that could honestly be a real-life scenario of what actually happened at Warner Brothers the Monday after this movie came out. That's what it feels like when you've wasted money on a movie that nobody was going to watch. I mean, this was unprecedented back then for how bad this movie performed. And this was Eddie Murphy at his absolute worst. And honestly, that's saying a whole lot. This whole movie is a mess. It's a mess of a film. It's not funny. It's not clever. This was a script that was sitting on numerous shelves in Hollywood for decades, and it shows. There was not a single laugh in this entire movie. There's not one bit of anything clever, no impressive visuals, no good acting, a stupid twist that you could see coming a mile away. I mean, the plot I just summed down for you pretty much tells you what the plot of the movie, what the twist is, if you look real closely into it. This was just a gigantic mess of stupidity, lack of creativity or enjoyment. It just didn't work. It was the absolute worst movie released in 2002. One of the worst movies I've ever seen. This movie made The Master of Disguise look better by comparison. That's how bad this movie is. So, I guess you can obviously know what I'm about to tell you, and that is avoid the adventures of Pluto Nash like the plague. So, let's go ahead and try to wrap this up on a more positive note. Here's Gwyneth Paltrow in Possession. You know, the fact that this is PG-13 probably doesn't help the movie's overall quality because of what it's trying to accomplish here, but certainly better than some of the other movies we've looked at this week, but or at least Pluto Nash. But you have Aaron Eckhart playing Roland Mitchell, who's an American scholar trying to make it into the difficult world of British academia. I keep thinking of My Hero Academia. British academia. He has yet to break out from under his mentor's shadow until he finds a pair of love letters that once belonged to one of his idols, a famous Victorian poet. Michelle, after some sleuthing, narrows down, I guess it's Roland Michelle, not Mitchell, like before, but Michelle, like a Ben Stiller and Dodgeball. Michelle! Anyway, back to the plot. Michelle, after some sleuthing, narrows down the suspects to a woman not his wife, another well-known Victorian poet. Roland enlists the aid of a Dr. Maud Bailey, an expert on the life of the woman in question. Together they must piece together the story of a forbidden love affair and discover one of their own. They also find themselves in a battle to hold on to their discovery before it falls into the hands of their rival, Fergus Wolfe, played by Toby Stephens, and of course Maud Bailey is played by Gwyneth Paltrow. This is directed by Neil Butte, who had directed Your Friends and Neighbors and In the Company of Men and Nurse Betty beforehand, and definitely not one of his strongest films overall, but a film that's, how do I put this? It's not the worst, but you expect a little bit more considering, A, the source material, the fact that it's a romantic mystery drama, and that one of the characters is a literal free-thinking bisexual, so that's one of the things they try to bring into this situation, but it's PG-13. You know you're not going to get any big nudity scenes in particular here, or really that many arousing sex scenes if you're really that interested into those. But I guess what you get with a film that does work are the performances. I think Gwyneth Paltrow and Aaron Eckhart do a pretty good job of handling the role here. The mystery aspect here is kind of intriguing overall. I think it does serve itself serve itself okay, but the climax of the film, I think, is really where the film starts to lose its focus. Once you figure out where they're going with the direction that they're going, you can kind of figure it out right away, and it does kind of ruin the mood and the ebb and flow of what was working beforehand. There are times when the film works pretty well, but then it kind of slows off a little bit here to the point where I can't really recommend it overall. I mean, like I said, it's not one of Neil LaBute's best films, but it certainly isn't a great movie on either shape or form either. It's just kind of a movie that I can't even recommend, quite honestly. It's just kind of like, I mean, it's not the worst, but it's definitely not something that's great either. It's something I can't really recommend overall. But that's really all I got to say about this one here. This one didn't really leave much of a lasting impact to me personally, but that is Possession.
Joe, the process server. I work with a couple of real sweethearts.
I want you to be more like Tony.
That's impossible. I walk upright.
Hey, this Friday.
If you help me sue my partner, I'll pay $1 million.
Great, let's get him.
Watch your back. And whatever you do, don't get caught.
Help me, not arrest me.
Today, Elizabeth Hurley, serving Sarah.
Let me just say, that suit is kicking.
Get out! Rated PG-13. Get the naked truth this Friday.
Matthew Perry plays a process server who's given the assignment to serve a British socialite, played by Elizabeth Hurley, with divorce papers, but is persuaded to serve her husband instead so that she can get a larger portion of his money in the divorce. And like I said, this film did not do very well at the box office. It was actually panned by critics when it came out, but it's one of those movies that I kind of look back on and think to myself, you know, especially since after Matthew Perry passed away, I think this movie is actually a lot better than I think a lot of people give it credit for. It's interesting to see Reginald Hudlin do something a little bit outside of his norm, not doing another movie like A House Party or Boomerang. And, you know, I like this movie a lot. I was really impressed with how much I enjoyed this movie more when I watched it again recently. It was a movie that was just kind of like, at first, it was alright, but I didn't think it was that as bad as people made it out to be. But I've seen more and more now, more elements to it that I really do like about the film in general. I think it has a strong cast overall, not just with Perry, Hurley, and Campbell, but also Amy Adams, Vincent Pastore, Cedric the Entertainer involved in the cast, and it knows it's not meant to be taken that seriously. It knows it's supposed to be a little bit too over the top for its own good, and I thought it was fine for what it is. I think definitely after Matthew Perry passed away, I did start to realize more and more that he did make a lot of decent movies that weren't as memorable as they should have been. But, you know, he was putting his all into it. Even if the scripts were not that great in general, this one's kind of on that same level here. But I found more and more to appreciate about this movie because of him and the cast all around him. I think they make this material work as well as it should. And sometimes the jokes can be really funny. There are a couple of legitimately good jokes overall that I thought worked pretty well. And, it kind of breezes by. It's not a film that really goes on for too long. You don't really notice it as it goes, but it is once you get out of there, you really feel like that you haven't been there for too long overall. It comes in, you go in, you go out. It feels perfectly fine. You feel like you've seen something pretty decent. Nothing that's going to be considered a classic by any means necessary, but a film that I think could honestly be considered much better than I think a lot of people give it credit for. And Serving Sarah, I think, definitely is one of those movies that's definitely a lot better than I think a lot of people give it credit for. So that's Serving Sarah. So let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, Wesley Snipes and Ving Rhames in the prison boxing drama, Undisputed.
Wesley Snipes. I can take this guy now. Ving Rhames.
Hey, but one champion here.
Peter Falk.
Get ready to fight.
Michael Rooker.
Give me a situation ready.
And Wes Studi. Two undefeated boxers.
Light time, light days, light seconds, they all
An unprecedented event.
And if I knew I had to go to jail and see a fight like this, I'd have been a crime a long time ago.
One undisputed champion.
In Undisputed, you have George Chambers, played by Ving Rhames, who is a top-ranked heavyweight boxer. However, Chambers has his world turned upside down when he's accused of rape and sent to prison. Upon his arrival, he hears talk about Monroe Hutchin, played by Wesley Snipes, who is the top-ranked prison boxing champ 10 years running. Immediately, there is bad blood with Chambers not wanting to be second to no one, which leads to a lunchroom fight between the men, finding it will be a good way to make money for fellow convict Emmanuel Mendy Ripstein, played by Peter Falk, setting up a prison boxing match between the two men to decide who's the real undisputed champ. In addition, you have Michael Rooker, Fisher Stevens, Master P, and John Cena among the cast in here. It's kind of basically the boxing equivalent to The Longest Yard, but for Walter Hill, whose last movie was completely screwed over big time by MGM and Francis Ford Coppola with Supernova, this is a nice return to form for him. Yeah, it's a film that's pretty much the equivalent to something like The Longest Yard, but at the same time, it does a lot of different things that are so unique and so different that I think it is another kind of underrated gem of a film. It's a film that really, I think, deserves a lot more attention than it gets, and I'm glad to see that it has found success down the road to where it has somewhat of a cult following to it. They've even made direct-to-video sequels, but of course with those direct-to-video sequels, they're not usually going to be that good, but you do get a really good film here. I like Wesley Snipes and Ving Rhames. I think they work off each other very well. I like the acting overall in this movie. It's cool to see Peter Falk kind of playing against type. He's not playing the Columbo character like we're used to seeing him. Like, it's a film that's really, really good. Like, I like the fight sequences. I think it's very well done. It's a pretty interesting concept overall here that does try to distance itself from other movies that are similar to it. And I think for the most part it works pretty well. It's not one of Walter Hill's best movies, but it's definitely a nice return to form after something like Supernova kind of dropped him off of the cliff a little bit. But that is undisputed. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, which is Al Pacino in Simone.
His star has disappeared.
Can you tell us why you're disposing of the body?
But to understand the truth, I didn't kill anyone. You have to understand the lie. There's no one to kill. New Line Cinema presents Al Pacino.
I swear I made Simone.
Victor, she made you.
Simone, rated PG-13. Virtually everywhere August 23rd.
Yeah, honestly, I'd probably take back what I said before, because so far most of the movies we've covered this week have been really good, and I've yet to see one bad movie here. This is another one that, again, was not well received when it came out. I got mostly mixed reviews when it came out. Did decent business. It wasn't a complete flop overall, but I think they expected a lot more considering that this came from the same man that gave us Gattaca and also The Truman Show. You have Al Pacino as a fading director who creates a virtual actress who's played by the director's wife, Andrew Nicole, his wife, Rachel Roberts, to star in his films in the attempts he makes to make her non-presence a secret as she becomes more and more famous. So it's basically playing with the idea of a virtual actor basically taking over the world, which, you know, this was something that is pretty much clearly ahead of its time, because we're pretty much doing that nowadays when we really think about it. But yeah, I think this was just coming out of the time when this movie really did not have, you know, the idea is everyone thought the idea of virtual actors being put in there was kind of put to rest when Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within the previous summer failed to make a traction at the box office. But here, it's a movie that I think really was ahead of its time, because now we have people who clearly are virtual actors. I mean, VTubers are one thing that come to mind here. You know, virtual reality is a big thing nowadays, and you know, this was a movie that maybe doesn't have the same social commentary that something like The Truman Show or Gattaca does, but you could tell that it definitely was indeed ahead of its time. It's something that's very, very interesting on how it's handled. Al Pacino, I thought, was really good in the film. I also like this actress, Rachel Roberts, who unfortunately hasn't really done a whole lot. I think they were expecting this to be like her big breakout role, and like I said, the film didn't do well enough for that to become a reality, but the film did pretty well overall. I think it was a really good film that really says a lot of things that we're talking about nowadays, like the idea of virtual reality, AI essentially taking over, and I thought it was a very good idea on how to handle this. Like, it's a very good film, a strong cast overall, just great direction, great writing, and yeah, it may not have the same, you know, questionable things like you want to. It's like what I want to say here. It may not have the same ideas and questions that you may be asking yourself with something like The Truman Show or Gattaca, but it definitely has shown that this movie was clearly ahead of its time. Maybe came out too early for its own good, but I hope this one does get a bigger following in the years to come, because it clearly shows that we are indeed heading more into this direction as we're moving forward into the world of reality, and like as they're trying to push AI and virtual reality to another level here. But definitely check out Simone. I highly recommend it. It's a criminally underrated film. Definitely a must-watch. So let's go ahead and wrap this up with the last movie we have here, Robin Williams starring in 1 Hour Photo.
What you got there, family photos?
Just when you thought Death to Smoochie and Insomnia were completely against type for Robin Williams, hang on to your seat for this one, because this is easily the best movie he made in 2002, and it's definitely because he goes so against type in this movie, in a good way. He stars as a photo technician who develops an unhealthy obsession with a family to whom he has had long provided services. And you know, there's been a lot of, and I think one of the criticisms for the movie, the positive criticisms for the movie, says that it will do for cameras what Psycho did for showers. Like, it's a movie that has a lot of comparisons to something like a Psycho movie, and it really works because Robin Williams is just putting his all into it. This is really a great performance that shows that Robin Williams is not just the typical funny guy we see all the time, which he's a great comedic actor, but movies like this are why he is so good as a dramatic actor, because he just plays this guy that you know that he's clearly doing a lot of wrong things, but you also feel sympathetic towards him because he is a very lonely person, and only a guy like Robin Williams can make a role like this work, even though you're clearly supposed to hate this guy on so many levels, especially for what he's doing. Great cast overall in this film. Colleen Nielsen, Michael Vartan from Alias, Gary Cole from Office Space, Eric LaSalle from ER, and written and directed by Mark Romanek, who later go on to direct stuff like The Wolfman, done a ton of music videos. I mean, this really is one of the best movies of 2002, and one of the best performances by Robin Williams by a long shot. It's very tense, it gets chilling at times, the visual look of the film is gorgeous, the cinematography by Jeff Cronenweth, is so well done. The music is very good, it feels very unique and stylish for its own good. It's a really good movie. I can't recommend this one enough. If you have not seen 1 Hour Photo and you're looking to see one of Robin Williams' most out there performances, this one's definitely worth it. Definitely check it out, 1 Hour Photo. You are doing yourself a huge disservice by not watching it.
Detective, we've got a white male, 54 years old.
What happened to him? Must have been into computers, this guy.
Do you want to see more? We have another one.
There are 5 bodies so far.
Oh my God. The one thing that all of the victims have in common is the fear site.
We gotta get these computers checked out.
I'm waiting for you. Don't you want to play with me?
Every one of these victims died 2 days to the minute after they first logged on to the fear site.
The things on that site no one has ever seen before.
They spread it.
Police!
There's no telling how many are infected.
Can you promise me one thing? That you won't visit that site?
I'm coming for you. Do you want to play?
To catch the killer, he must become the victim.
Sorry, did I scare you?
No, you did everything but scare me. In fact, let's a couple things to start off with. You know what the scariest thing about this whole trailer was? Franchise Pictures logo on the front of it. Now that right there is scary, because you know that once you see that logo, there is no point of no return in this movie. no point of return in this movie, because once you see that logo there, it's basically downhill from there. But not only that, the movie is called Fear.com. It's a movie about a New York City detective who investigates a series of mysterious deaths connected to a disturbing website. This movie is so lazy that saying that is like, you can't just type in Fear.com. No. These are people that clearly know how the internet works, because you don't just type in Fear.com. No. You type in Fear.com.com. Okay. Maybe I'm just thinking too much here, but this idea of the fact that a website kills you after just 2 days. I mean, the Ring video basically kills you after 7 days. So I guess that this killer right here, whoever this is, actually has more of an advantage than the Ring girl does. But you know what? The Ring girl's still terrifying. This is just like, I can tell you've seen the movie Videodrome. This is just a bad knockoff of Videodrome, a terrible knockoff of Videodrome, if you will, because Videodrome works for a number of different reasons better than this movie does, because Videodrome actually has the power to use the technology of the day, practical effects. It has a much more engaging story. It has more to say. This is just flat out garbage. This is just a terrible film. It's not scary. It's not that intense. It's not that terrifying. This director also did The House on Haunted Hill. And the thing that worked for The House on Haunted Hill was that it had a slick style to it. It was a visually pleasing film to look at. I mean, it's a film that's been there, done that. And it's been done so much better. But, it did a whole lot better than The Haunting that came out that year. I mean, this movie actually knew what it was... That movie actually knew what it was doing. But this film... Nope, you don't even get that. I mean, the stylish factor that was in The House on Haunted Hill, not here. I mean, this movie is bleak as all hell. This has too many talented people to be in this film. Natasha McElhonney is one of those examples. Like, Stephen Ray is another example. Stephen Dorff. Say what you will about Stephen Dorff. I mean, Stephen Dorff has picked some really bad movies, but you know what? This may be the bottom of the barrel, and this is the same guy that did Biodome. That should tell you everything you need to know here. Plus, nobody can look at this website and think, this seems really sketchy, but hey, there's a friggin' hot chick in BDSM lingerie. I'm there. Like, it's one of the worst horror movies ever made. It's not scary, it's not terrifying, and it's so bland, so mediocre, and so predictable. I mean, it's unbelievable how bad this movie is. I mean, this is unbelievable how horribly put together this film is. It's just a horribly put together movie, and it has a twist that is so stupid and so put together. Like, it's literally The Haunting, the climax of The Haunting. I mean, you find out one of the three guys I just mentioned is actually the killer, and it's actually made by the person that was made by one of the first victims. That the website was actually made by one of the first victims, because it's revenge for the people that were watching her being tortured and murdered, and Of course, the two detectives, Mike and Terry, Stephen Dorff and Natasha McElhonney's characters track him down, and guess who kills him? The girl, the murdered girl from the website. So, and other than that, everything is basically back to the way it is. Like, it's literally nothing at all. It's literally nothing, and it's just like The Haunting ending is pretty bad, but at least there was something going on. At least there was a purpose there for The Hauntings ending to be there. Even if it was completely stupid, it has one of the worst endings ever compared to the original film. But again, this movie just takes it to another level that's so lazy and so put together. Like, why did the detectives even need to be there? I mean, the spirit couldn't just do it beforehand? No, it wouldn't be too convenient for the plot to go forward here. Plus, we got to tease a potential sequel at the end of it, thinking that it's not going to end with just killing this one guy. It's just like, screw you. Like, again, if you saw the Franchise Pictures logo at the beginning, that should have been your first warning to get the hell out of here. And that's even, like I said, that's even more scarier than the movie you're about to watch. I got nothing else to say, man. This is a terrible, terrible movie, and just another example of why I think Warner Brothers had a pretty shitty year in 2002, because most of their movies were terrible films, and here's yet another example of it. And I think we actually have another one of those examples coming up next week. So, we'll find out about that in just a second. But, yeah, I got nothing else to say. Fear.com is absolutely horrible. I got nothing else for you.